Okay. I'm getting used to the volume and it coming back at me, and I'm like, wow, once again, bold move, bold strategy, Cotton, giving me a microphone, especially right after lunch when I can tell everyone is just a little like it's hitting. And so y'all are going to expect me to be exciting, engaging. I'm also curious because I have these chairs and I feel like I should be, so tell me about your problems. But on that note, welcome everyone. And so the title to the talk, and hopefully if you're in the right place, is Building Against a Breach Out of a Disclosure. I'm Liz, Lawyer Liz on various social medias. I refuse to acknowledge any changes of stuff like that. And real quick, I am a lawyer. I'm probably not your lawyer though. I have a handful of clients. I work with startups. I have been practicing law for 20 years now, and I give terrible legal advice because y'all aren't my clients. But this is not intended to be legal advice, et cetera, et cetera. But what it is going to be is a deeper dive because I am constantly curious. I want to know what lies beneath. Like, okay, there's what's sitting on the surface. We know there's a breach. We know something happened. Okay. But I also know that, for example, lawyers and some other folks, we're lazy. We love copy pasta. So when we are copying and pasting and using the forms that we have developed, when the PR team is getting out the messaging and the comms, and we're saying all these things that really say nothing at all. In fact, there's an entire TED Talk, I believe, where basically he says nothing. But he tells you, I'm going to use the following tone of voice when I tell you nothing. And then I'm going to get excited and you're going to hang on my every word. So if you think of what happens when there is that breach, when there is an incident, and suddenly you're flooded with all the information. But thanks to playing around with some agents, AI, LLM, we can take a deeper dive and actually hear what's not being said. And taking what's not being said, or what is being said, and the time of day in which it's being said. We can take all of that, put it together, and actually get a better picture, intentional or not. A lot of times, folks don't know that's what they're doing. They're not aware because this is one of the first times we've had that perfect collision of the ability to parse a ton of data faster than you or I can do it. And it's also required to be disclosed now. And we have all these aspects. And if you can crunch it through, build your own, get a COTS LLM, run it through not just for red teaming, because cool, that's fun. Red teaming's sexy, right? They get all the glory. But what if you took it, ran it against your own network, your own system, your own company, your own things, and we're able to get all these different pieces back and able to tell, oh, well, hey, let's plan ahead. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's build a better playbook based on what's not being said. So a good backdrop to this, and I know we're so tired ad nauseum. Oh, yay, another look at MGM and Caesars. Well, yes, but no. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it. We're not going to do this post-mortem, Instead, what we're going to look at is you have two companies who took two different approaches, yet they were telling us a lot of the same stuff by not telling us. So high level, just for those who were asleep 2 years ago, a year ago, and God bless RSA is coming up. I'm sure somebody will have marketing pieces out on this any minute. But you have the same threat actors. And you have the comm, you have Scattered Spider, they're all coming out after it. So they had the same approach. Social engineering. They go to LinkedIn. They're able to get the credentials, know that, build all this stuff out. Well, okay, yeah, yawn. They went to LinkedIn and did social engineering. Where it gets fun is looking at their approaches and the aftermath of how they did this. And what do I mean? Well, so right around the time that this happened, in August and September of 2023, the SEC had, their new rules were going into effect for these beautiful little 8K filings. Are 8Ks anything new? No. In fact, they're one of the most commonly filed documents with the SEC. And if you want, and kind of a pointer in case I forget to mention it later, by the way, the SEC, through its filing system, Edgar, releases all of its data in forms that can be, and they release APIs. They say, here it is. We are going to throw up on the page. So you don't have to pay a lot of money for a big subscription to look at, quite frankly, over 60,000 8Ks were filed last year. And we'll hit some of these stats again. But let's sit there and think about 60,000 documents. Well, we have Caesars and we have MGM. Big surprise, they both filed a disclosure. They said, hey, we've had a problem. But let's take a step back. Caesars paid the ransom. Barely a blip, barely an inconvenience of an issue for them because they paid. Their 8K goes into this long word vomit. Fun thing, you run the text from the 8Ks through any AI model, and one of the first things they'll spit out is, yeah, this is formulaic. In fact, this was probably written by an LLM because it's copy pasta. Again, keep in mind, we're lazy. Difference is sometimes we're lazy in different ways. So we've got Caesars. Caesars wants to tell you all about it. Well, then you also have their AK, which again, didn't tell us much. I mean, it told us something, didn't tell us that much. Keep in mind, other states require you to file things if there's been a data breach. So they had to put out their state filings where they disclose a little bit more. But what was interesting, they forgot to mention, I'm going to just say forgot, that pesky little thing called ransomware in their filings. They were like, we've had an incident. We're having it, maybe some data got exposed. My dudes, they were about to have you buy the, keeping it PG, maybe a little G, but you just paid the ransom. So, okay, interesting. You did the filings, you gave a look. Well, then we have MGM. Anyone remember how much they eventually reported as their losses? 100 million. 100 million. And so, by the way, this was their 8K. That was it. Like, that's it. That's all they told us. Their world is burning to the ground. They can't operate their elevators. They had to pull all of their sports betting online offline. And they said, hi, we're having an incident. Read our press release. Thank you and good night. What in the world? So again, we've got Caesars that's telling you everything, filing everywhere, doing all these things. And MGM going, please see our press release. But it's a reminder that the world of documents and information that is publicly available that they are putting out. And by the way, this is their press release. It used keywords. If you're taking notes, kind of file those keywords in the back of your mind. Incident, investigation, law enforcement, impact. Hold on. Let me get my readers out. In the press release, we say, I'm doing this for dramatic effect and also because I need a new prescription. MGM Resorts recently identified a cybersecurity issue affecting certain of the company's systems. Promptly after detecting the issue, we began an investigation with assistance from leading external cybersecurity experts. We also notified law enforcement and are taking steps to protect our systems and data, including shutting down certain systems. Our investigation is ongoing, and we are working diligently to resolve the matter. The company will continue to implement measures to secure its business operations and take additional steps as appropriate. Hi, your world is on fire. Your 8K said, see the press release. Your press release said that. It said nothing. So while Caesars said nothing, MGM also said nothing. And to delve a little bit, so they didn't just file the first one, as we talked about. There's over 60,000 of these that get filed a year. Because once you start doing the investigation, additional information comes up, you have to update, and you have to update. And by the way, these are not just for cybersecurity incidents. There's a whole slew of other filings that can tag those. But again, looking at the fact that they mention, okay, here's a helpline, maybe some information, some of the data, and yeah, we're estimating 100 million. You know it was more than 100 million. But this is just a statement they're putting out for their investors. Again, not really saying much. But reminder, are you taking notes? We've set the scene. We've given you these two companies, their press releases, their filings, and there's going to be a couple more things. They've had their federal filings, they've had their regulatory, they've had their state filings, they've had these press releases. Oh, and keep in mind, this is in September. What happens at the end of the year or in Q1? Start releasing their annual reports, their financial statements, because again, these are publicly traded companies. And if you're sitting there stretching back going, yeah, that's nice, Liz, you're about to tell me how they actually told us everything we needed to know in this. They're a publicly traded company. I work for a startup. I work for a small municipal government. Yeah, that's nice, so did I. Except for mine wasn't small. I worked for the city of Atlanta. I worked for the world's busiest airport trying to secure their systems. Did we have to do some of this stuff? Nope. But if you go back and look through and you want to find the things that the releases, the press releases, don't say, look at the contracts we entered into right after a breach happened. Fascinating. Look what became things. So if you're taking notes, there's so much more to this than what we've seen, right? I mean, here we are. So again, with that in the background, let's talk about what else is going on. So that's the filings, that's all this. Well, you look beyond the suits, or look to the suits. Don't look at the IT department. Y'all are working as hard as you can. Don't look at the SOC. Don't look at the CISO sweating bullets right now, doing all these things. Keep in mind all the people who are not necessarily security focused. Oh, those are the suits. Those are the business operations. That's the legal department, in-house, outside counsel. That's the HR recruiting, in-house, outside. That's the PR, the marketing teams, the finance teams. None of them are top of brain going, hey, you know what we should be doing? Cybersecurity. No, they don't care. They're like, what do the financial reports look like? Legal is going, yeah, what are the contracts framed as? And when's our next reporting due? And PR teams like, hey, what's the website traffic going now that's not related to the breach? How are we going to run our numbers? So what they're doing, the noise they are creating, are, for example, one of my favorite places to find out who's about to get geared up for some massive litigation. I go to the job postings. I want to know who is hiring counsel. For example, I'm not saying Meta what, but when somebody's getting a new project, they're about 6 months out, they start hiring lawyers that have a specific expertise in whatever it is the product is about to roll out. If they're gearing up for litigation, they're about to sue someone, suddenly they're hiring more people for that kind of litigation. So those job postings, it's not only that, but if you think about how detailed some of these job postings get, fascinating. But what if you can pull them offline? What if you can pull them off LinkedIn? What if you can start comparing them against, let's just say the annual report. The annual report that also lists out who does what. That also lists out where their biggest factories are, where their biggest offices are, where are they leasing a lot of space. Ooh, that's interesting. Where are they not renewing leases? So is it starting to click of all the different ways? And if we can start comparing them against that breach information, let's see. So I keep talking about 8Ks, forgetting that not everybody's in my world of documents getting paper cuts. Yes, I still print stuff out. And when I talk about this, so like I said, 67,000 were filed in 2024. To the point where the SEC released guidance, and said, for the love of all that is good, stop it. Please have mercy on us. Not everything is a material event. And so we talk about material event. Keep in mind what the SEC is out for. They are not out there to make sure that you are meeting all the latest NIST standards on maybe back of their mind. What they're looking for is they're like, hey, do investors, do the public have the information they need to be able to trade on this company? That's who they're looking out for. So when you talk about, all right, that's the background. They're not going to do a deep dive analysis. Well, okay, sometimes they do. SolarWind says what? And they will come after in different things. But again, that's not their focus. So when you have all these rules, so they updated the rules. They said, all right, tell us about within 4 days of an incident, suddenly you need to tell us of a material. Again, it's evolving. You don't know 4 days into Atlanta's ransomware attack, I was trying to figure out how to recreate contracts that had statutory requirements. And because I'm a nerd and I had saved some stuff to various thumb drives so that I could take them between my airport office and my city hall office, I was able to recreate some of this stuff because I love backups and redundancies and I kept everything segregated. Yay! But I'm not thinking, I wonder if we've identified and perfectly disclosed all the information. Have we done all this? But that's what the SEC wants to do. So you can imagine this caused quite a big stir. But they don't say anything, as we saw. They're not saying anything. I mean, you can close your eyes in your sleep and you can write the press release that says this. We've identified an issue on our systems. It may impact data. But this is when, again, I talked about the copy pasta. It's when people deviate from that. Or are they not deviating? And are they sticking so close to what the form language is that they use? Because fun fact, all of them look the same. But when it doesn't look the same, when you haven't said something. So you've got those SEC filings. Well, we talked about, don't forget, the press releases. And again, these aren't just publicly facing companies that are doing this. Congratulations, you just closed your Series A funding. Or guess who's sponsoring a booth at Insert Conference? Of course, not BSidesCharm. BSidesCharm sponsors are fantastic. But you think about all these press releases, there's only a handful of companies, of professionals that are doing that. If you can start noticing the similarities, put that in the back of your mind. We'll get back to that. But that's what the people who are not focused on security are doing. They're also doing the job postings. Are they thinking about, hey, maybe we shouldn't put this in the job posting and save this for the interview? Nah, they want to get it out there. They want to make sure that when they turn the list of candidates over to you, or when the AI LLM itself has scraped through all the resumes, what have they found, right? That's what they're looking for. That's what they're doing. The focus is not on, hey, are we telling people a little too much? Or what are we telling by posting these jobs? For example, and okay, yeah, I circled back and I picked a little bit on MGM and Caesars because, again, we're doing this all compared. They're both hiring. These were, as of today, available things they have listed. And the legal and administrative, I wonder who got, who transitioned out? What roles are they looking for? If you're going to start social engineering, where are the weaknesses? Weaknesses may be in the role of the person who is just punching the clock until they're done, or the person who's now covering 3 different roles because the other person got fired and, hey, we're not going to give you a raise, but we're going to ask you to take over these responsibilities until this. And so when you start getting that phishing attack, you really care, right? Or you're checking the box because F them, they're not giving you, they didn't give you a pay raise. Interesting stuff that you can just easily scrape. Well, then we have the financial reports. And taking from MGMs, and you look at the table of contents, one, they're giving you all of the details on the cybersecurity incidents. They're right there, table of contents. They're telling you whose roles and responsibilities. They're telling you what happened because they're a publicly traded company. These are all on their website. They're not hidden behind a paywall. You can find them. You get the right things, you get the right keywords. Suddenly, we're finding the similarities, right? We're finding what is being said without it's being said because, again, who's assessing? Who's in charge of the risk? What are their priorities? What is their background? It's all out there. And then, okay, Coolio. But now we're talking about the other stuff that's out there, the other stuff that is building this massive trove of little tidbit nuggets that, again, are the lawsuits. So if you look at, for example, the current administration is, let's just say, targeting law firms, going after. Did they pick these law firms randomly? No. They pick the law firms that are doing certain things. If you look at it, there's only a handful of big law firms that represent VC funds. There's only a handful of law firms that represent certain tech companies. There's only a handful. So if we start being able to figure out which law firm is representing someone, because they filed lawsuits, it doesn't even have to be related to. So you've got all these little things. Because again, what is the theme? Copy pasta. Lawyers copy and paste from their filings into the next one because we're billing by the hour. Or we're doing a flat fee, and for the love of God, my bonus is going to be based on how many hours did I bill, and if I can put in 5 hours for this, but only actually have to do an hour worth of work because I copy and pasted from the last one I did, you will start to see the patterns that are created when I have copy and pasted. Because I'm going to use the same terms. Or I'm going to pull the same pleadings, the same corporate reports, the same different things from the last one I did. And sometimes, not that I would ever do this, but sometimes lawyers even forget to change the client's name in a document. Well, that doesn't take you having to run it through an LLM, right? I mean, that's just right there. Oh, let me guess. That's who your client is. Now I can add you to this little spider web that I'm building of connected tissue that is going to make it easier as an attacker, but also make it easier on the defensive side. Because if you're trying to figure out, oh, this law firm just got targeted by whatever, a breach, something, and they have poor security practices. Oh, but that's the law firm that has all of our stuff. I'm going to flag it. I'm going to pay attention to anything, any traffic coming in and out. Because again, so what? All right, all this stuff, not my circus, not my monkeys. I'm not a suit. I'm just sitting here defending, I'm just going about my day, making sure the systems are going, the trains are running on time, and all of that. And yeah, sure, okay, you said maybe an attacker's looking at that. Well, okay, here's how you frame it to the suits, to the C-suite. You remind them that BEC, business email compromise, created $2.9 billion in losses. So this hits the bottom line of the company. So maybe give me some more budget because I'm going to tell you how to fix it. And, 500 million in losses. And that, phishing, spoofing complaints, over 18 million just in, when you start just based on 300,000, it's like you start thinking, okay, sure, that hits the bottom line at this or that, but we start talking about them, it's the data disclosures, it's the social engineering aspect. Again, MGM Caesars, LinkedIn. They were getting it off of LinkedIn. They were finding this information, finding all these little nuggets. They're out there. Well, okay, 78% of organizations who paid a ransom were hit by a second attack. So, okay, yeah, we got hit once. Yeah, we learned our lesson. We've strengthened, hardened, did this, did that. Who cares? Yeah, well, that's when you go remind folks, hey, but it's coming back. It's coming back around. Because did we fix everything? One of my favorite things was with City of Atlanta, and we had to actually burn down our architecture. Yes, that is a joke about burning in Atlanta. For those who got it, thank you, you're old like me. But one of my favorite things is we had consultants coming in, they're like, you know what we're gonna do for the bargain basement price of insert really high price, we're gonna do pen tests, and we're gonna do this. I'm like, oh, that's great. That is great, because by the way, it's going to take a month for City Council to approve the budget. It's going to take us another month to implement whatever you found from the last one. Then it's going to take another month to even just be able to figure out where the equipment is, or where the hardware is, or where the software is, or what subscription, do we have the right subscription to patch that? Oh, shit. We patched it, but it was patched Tuesday, and now we have to patch something else that deals with that. And oh, by the way, we're at the end of the quarter, so therefore you're going to start doing the next quarterly pen test. And my response to them was, great. If y'all aren't copying and pasting the pen test you gave us last quarter, I want my money back, because I guarantee we haven't fixed that. So if you're not saying, hey, you still have this broken. So again, this is why it starts to be, because you don't know from the C-level, are all of our vulnerabilities, are all of our stuff that's exposed, did it get fixed, or is it about to be? So that's how you frame. But what happens when you start looking beyond what are the words on the page? Because keep in mind, you're uploading documents to court filing systems. You're doing all these things, and if you think that the PR firm, if you think that the lawyers took the time to strip out the metadata before they put it up and posted it somewhere, I love how you think we are that conscious of these things. I love the faith you have in us if that's what you think. We don't. They don't. Because that's not what people are focused on. So again, we're building out all of these different data points. What happens when now you can strip this out and it's not you doing it by yourself, but there's APIs that give you that access? And what starts to be learned from that? Because, okay, cool, I got some stats. No, you just figured out what contractor someone's working with, even if the contractor's name is not on the document, because you can compare it against all these other things, because there is a document somewhere they left their name on. You can now look at, and running through some of these filings, I can tell you what time of day Take that. Now I know, oh, well, it's this law firm. And if it's this law firm, it was probably this lawyer who did it because that lawyer tends to not work on Fridays. And this lawyer is the one who always files it if it's on Friday at 4 o'clock. Oh, by the way, Wednesdays and Fridays are the 2 days for all the SEC 8Ks that are bad. And it's after 4 o'clock. After 4 o'clock. So now I know what impacted business, what didn't impact. If you told me something it has no business impact, oh yeah, it did. It absolutely did. But now let me pull in the data from all these other places, and suddenly I know. And also, what are the future attack vectors? Well, I know what you're hiring for. I know who's going to be the new person on the block, and I know what they're going to be able to, when they get the email from the CFO saying, hey, I'm in a meeting, and I can't access something. So can you just out of band send me a wire transfer or authorize this? And yeah, I just can't find my favorite one was at the last company I would get once, and it was from the CEO, of course. The CEO can't find my cell number. I'm like, nice try. Dude, you're texting me on my cell phone right now, so not today, Satan, not today. But, and again, okay, cool. We have one or two. No, MGM has 25 years of press releases available on their website. Your company probably does similar. I guarantee for as much money as they may have paid for that press release and as excited as that PR and marketing team is about it, nothing has died on the internet. It's there. If you're scraping in the right places, it's out there. You've got it. Now you're running it through. Again, I'm just having fun poking at MGM and Caesars. And yeah, again, so cool. All the vendors who are out there telling you like, oh, we're going to tell you how to use the right AI-powered vulnerability scanners, and this is how you can do it. Yeah, all right. What does this have to do, Liz, with what you're talking about? Like what? Like that's what they're selling me. I'm like, yeah. What about Bob? What if you ran it against your own self, but you ran it in a way that you were looking at the information that you have had leaked? What if you start applying that? What if you look at the trends? Did my company do this before or after the SEC? Like, how many days did we respond? Because if it was a regular 8K filing that really wasn't going into too much depth over a material breach or cybersecurity incident, then we were probably going to wait a little bit longer. But suddenly we've got something, we know it's on fire. And we know it's on fire, and we want to get ahead of this because we don't want to have the SEC come after us later and fine us for something or say we didn't do it. So we're going to make sure we get it out quicker. Oops. Is that telling more than we thought it was? And, what if we start using things like material, immaterial, undetermined, or no statement at all as to the materiality? When you have certain cyber-related keywords, suddenly you can tell. And what about if we start using boilerplate language? What if we start repeating that boilerplate language, such as the investigation is ongoing? Yeah, everyone says that. The investigation is always ongoing. Well, okay, but what if we start seeing certain words that always pop up? And now we can run those words that are always popping up against what we know after the breach. What if we start paying, we go, oh, that was a really significant incident. We knew they were like, their hair was on fire and they were panicking. Now we have that pattern. Now we know, or now I know. And the words have meaning. What are the words that when you start scraping through, let's just say hypothetically every 8K filing ever because you're bored and there was an API that allowed me to do it and I run it through. What happens when I start seeing certain words pop up? What happens when I start seeing that word salad, and now I can go back and compare, but also, what if I can then run it against what my own team is doing? Again, keep in mind, we're building a playbook. We want to know how to do better. We want to know what other people are seeing and what they're doing. And why is this? So what happens when you look at, so in blue, you run companies, all right, how same are all of their filings? So when you look across different filings, how same are they? And you start seeing a lot of them are kind of similar, right? The higher the score, the more similar they are. What is that telling me? That's telling me they're using the same forms. They're using the same format. But when I look at the green and I start seeing companies being very similar to other companies, what can that start telling me? Maybe you're using the same people. Maybe you're using the same boilerplate language. That's interesting. So what happens when you deviate from it? What happens? So now I have both the attack vector of you're using the same companies. If this company gets popped, in other words, this law firm gets popped, this CPA firm gets popped, this something gets popped. Now I need to know, am I probably going to get popped because that's who we use? Even though nobody goes and tells the tech team, the security team, oh, by the way, this is who we use for our law firm on the following cases. This is who we use as our CPA. This is who we use. No, you don't see that. But what if you can find it out because you've looked at those similarities and you've tracked it yourself? Because if you can find it, I guarantee some bored kid in the comm has found it, they've done it, and they're selling it. Do I recommend going and buying it off of the dark webs? No. But build it yourself. It's not that hard. Because all that data, all those disclosures and leaks aren't just for the publicly traded companies. Yes, each and every one of us are special little snowflakes who can do something with this information. Because the goal is, again, to manage and mitigate. You are not unique, and that's a good thing. But you are, and that's even better, because you can find out where in all of these data points by running these LLMs and turning it and looking at yourself, you can build a better playbook because you can find where are we falling in the norms? Where do we use that language and where do we don't? Where does that become, let's just say, interesting? And so again, use the tools. Assess all the different channels. Don't just focus on it. Look at find out who you're working with, what you're doing, the timing. Are we releasing statements that if it's critical, we're releasing it at 4 o'clock on a Friday? But if it's not critical, we're releasing it on a Thursday or a Tuesday, which are the 2 days that nobody does. And also, let's pay attention to what phrases we're using. Because build better, update the game plan, meet the players. Do you know, have you had those conversations? Create a scouting report. Go through, when you run it and you see, we're using these words. We're using this phrase, and we only use this phrase when it means this. So how about this? How about you feed the press releases into the system so that you know, hey, we just sent out a press release. It did the following things. We've just flagged ourselves. So, now we know. Now we have the scouting report. We know who's doing what. Set up alerts because you've figured out who the law firm is, who the CPA is, who are these other folks that you're using. When they get popped, when they get breached, wouldn't you like to know? Like a tsunami warning that, hey, our law firm just got breached. We may need to tighten up some controls. Someone in our industry who uses the same law firm just got breached. Maybe. And review the plays. Look at what you're doing from either past incidents. Look at how it compares to what some of the other folks are doing as well. And run the plays. Practice. The tabletops don't have to be just for breach. What happens when you can run it And now you're running against, well, I saw what Caesars did. I saw what MGM did. I saw how they released something at the same time. All right, maybe we need to update. Maybe we need to, hey, are y'all aware that when y'all do this at a certain, like the boilerplate, sometimes boilerplate is good. Sometimes boilerplate lets people know, yeah, no, we're working on this. It's no big deal. We don't feel like our hair's on fire. See, we released this at a Thursday. We released it and we did this, or just know like, hey, making the team, going back, making sure that like, are y'all aware that you did this? Hey, I can't help but notice that you didn't strip the metadata out of the documents you're filing on our behalf. Yeah, we're going to build this into the contracts and requirements that you do this. We can't help but notice that you did a special marketing campaign and you linked back to something we did that was proprietary, or like, hey, maybe we don't do that. Or, hey, can't help but notice that in our financial disclosures, you probably went a little bit further and told them, or in the job postings, hi, maybe we don't need to list all the systems that we use as a requirement in the initial job posting. Or maybe we pepper a job posting with some kind of not red flag, but false flags, red herrings. Or maybe we do this, maybe we do that. But you know how you get to know that? By the way, lawyers, we are scary. We do bite, yes. But we won't bite you if you're our client most of the time. I may want to smack you a little bit, but get to know them. Get to know those familiar faces so that they have the trust in you, you have the trust in them, and y'all can have that dialogue. Because the last thing you want is the first conversation you have with someone is like, hey, so I know we've never talked, we've never spoken, we've never emailed, but by the way, it's on fire. Or, hey, good job, kudos, you just did all this. Running those elements, figuring out where those leaks are coming from, that drip, 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 and building the relationship to patch it is what gets you, well, it gives you a better playbook. Look at the breaches you've had, look at the breaches others have had, look at how you're running them, build the better playbook and update the game plan. Because again, it seems boring, right? It's the stuff nobody thinks about. But we have the capabilities with all it, like it doesn't take a lot of time and effort. This stuff is publicly available. I'm not even talking about the stuff you need a subscription for. Why not run it? Why not build better with that? So thank you, everyone. I appreciate y'all not like groaning too much at my jokes. I'm happy to answer questions if I have any time, because I can't see with the lights whether I have any time left. Or also find me, happy to answer. I will be around. Lawyer Liz Wharton. I guess I should plug my own company, Silver Key Strategies, because it's me. Anyway, thank you so much. Yes.
Just expanding a little bit on your premise. I spent a few years doing DFIR work, and as a consultant who would be on the phone from the tech side, normally the client who got hit would, through their insurance, would reach out to an attorney. There was a set number of attorneys or law firms that were approved. That group had a set number of approved DFIR firms and a set number of approved PR firms. And so you get these groups over and over again. You'd have match patterns. I suspect that if you were to add into your review looking for differences within this law firm using this DFR firm, the separations on how to put the report would be even more meaningful than it would be if you're trying to. Now, admittedly, they seem to steal from each other across firms because, well,
yes.
There's some opportunities to expand and have some fun.
Yeah, and that's a very salient point. And so to paraphrase, keeping in mind, when there is an incident and you go through your insurer has a set pre-approved list of PR firms, crisis firms, law firms. You could only go to so many. And if you think we are just copying from our prior work, for example, back many moons ago when I worked for banks, the banks would have certain forms. They had one set of approved form that every law firm that worked for them had to use. So that does become fascinating when you start looking at, and that's additional information. You can figure out who all is using which insurers and which insurers pay out, which insurers don't, what they're going to do. But that is a data point that you can absolutely scrape from as well. Awesome. Okay, we have a couple more minutes, I think, if I can read it. Yes. Yeah. And so to paraphrase on that, again, another salient point, but it's talking about how when you have industries such as law firms that in some cases lawyers have been practicing forever, they have their set systems, we're building that, but it's not just lawyers, accounting firms and stuff, and you try to get them to change, yeah, good luck, because they've built the system, and unless you are holding the wallet. And so in this instance, the law firm was breached. So like, yeah, no, yeah. And it happens. Where you can control it is, hey, let's figure out, are we using one of those firms? And if we are, then you know, all right, we need to, on our end, work in, because when a breach happens, it's money and it's data. And it's systems like, how much is it going to cost us? How much is it going to cost us to patch, repair, rebuild? Build that into the analysis. Make sure that the law firm perhaps should be the one holding the bag of like, hey, we're going to build this in because lawyers we don't like to part with our money just as no one else does. So make it expensive. Put some of those. Put extra filters on when stuff is coming and going. But you know that because you've run some of the data analysis on this and it didn't take that much extra effort. You automated it. You put it into them. You let the agents do their thing and see what they spit back. Yes?
Just a comment. You're talking about the legal industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's other service providers are doing the same thing.
Yes, and that's why highlighting. And so the comment is other service providers. I'm just focusing on some of the comments because that's what I have firsthand experience in, is what the law firms are doing. But as we talked about, it's the PR firms, it's the press releases that are saying everything and nothing and finding those patterns. It's, everything down to the swag vendor. You think of it, if someone outside, that's what we're talking about, like the business, going back and like looking at who are the suits. And I'm using that very broadly to say, who are the non-product tech focused people that either internally or externally that you're working with, because those are the ones who are probably doing more damage of leaking than everyone else combined. Because most of the business email compromise and most of the attacks are coming in through HR, finance, and legal. Sorry, we ruined it for you, everyone. Yeah.
Also, your adversaries are doing everything every day because they are trying to identify targets every day, down to wherever they can collect phone numbers from.
Yeah. We were talking about, so in the comments, reminding that the media does this because what you're saying and what you're not saying, that's not the story. The story is like weaving in between and who else is impacted. They find that by doing the same analysis. The threat actors are doing this. That's how they figure out who the next weakness is. Again, you're hiring for this. You're using these vendors. You're doing that. Well then. And by the way, on LinkedIn, these are the phone numbers, emails, and these are the people. Like, yeah, it's right there. So again, thank you. And I look forward to seeing what all y'all can create and share and add to this.